Hey everyone, this is Mario again, coming at you with another review. Today's movie is of a film that I liked as a kid. It was a film that I didn't own the film, but I would watch it whenever it was on TV, and I even taped it once, and I don't remember what happened to the tape. Anyway, it was from on TV anyway. And I decided to give it a rewatch. It was on Netflix, so I watched it tonight. And the movie is the 1985 horror film based on the Stephen King novella cycle of the Werewolf, entitled Silver Bullet. The movie stars Gary Busey, Everett McGill, Megan Follows, Corey Haim, Terry McQueen, Lawrence Tierney, Bill, okay, this name is going to give me some trouble, Smitrovich, Ken Broadhurst, David Hart, and it is directed by Dan Attias. And it was produced by Dino De Laurentiis. Now, I think I better go into a little backstory about it. Cycle of the Werewolf was a novella that King wrote in the 80s. He originally wrote it as it was supposed to be like a short story tie-in with a werewolf calendar, but as they put it, King being King, the story eventually grew too big and it was published as a standalone novel. Now, while I've never read the novel because I haven't been able to find it either at the used bookstores or Barnes & Noble, I do have the audiobook and I have listened to select sections of it, and it sounds like it's an interesting story. Maybe one day on one of my alternate channels I'll post the audiobook because it is very interesting. But from what I've read, there are minor differences and stuff, some of it in some of it in minor characterization. One of them is that the film takes place in a shorter time span, whereas in the novel, the story takes place throughout the whole course of a year. In the movie, it takes place from around the time school ends to Halloween. And some other stuff is some stuff is more implied in the movie. Some other stuff is kind of changed around for simplicity's sake. And it's an interesting change, especially considering how short the novella is. But now, one thing I should mention is that this film kind of has mixed reviews. I mean, on Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 50 from critics and it has a 58 from the audience. So the audience likes it a little bit more than the critics do. And on IMDb, it currently has a 6.1. So there it has it. I have to say I agree more with the 6.1 rating. I think it's more of a film that probably 6 out of every 10 people will enjoy, not like 50-50, I think. But one of the critics that actually enjoyed it was Roger Ebert, though granted he makes fun of some of the stuff in the movie. He still does enjoy it, which that's good. But other critics were harsh, like, here's one that Scott Weinberg said, a horror flick for young fans who aren't quite prepared for the really scary stuff. I'd like to refute you. I saw this movie after I saw a lot of scary stuff, so I think granted as a kid it'd be harder for me to judge, but as an adult I can say I still enjoy this movie about as much as I did as a kid, so I'm refuting you. And then of course, let's see, another guy feels episodic and slight, a little more than a slasher movie in which a slasher is a lycanthrope. Okay, that second one, and I can see who he says that. The second one's kind of true, and it does feel episodic, but the novella is supposed to be like that too. I think that's kind of the point of it, is that it's supposed to feel that way. Whether you didn't like it or not, that's your opinion. But you can tell I disagree with those two guys, because I really do love this movie. Now, it had a budget of $7 million, it only grossed 12, so, and I don't know how much the advertising was, so I don't know how well that was, but you could tell even nowadays that'd be not a good gross, because especially nowadays with all the advertisements and stuff. But I really do want to get this movie in my collection one day. I have an AVI that I can use for tribute making and stuff, but I'm not going to buy it until they actually do release a good DVD, because from what I understand, the current DVD is bare bones. And for a Stephen King movie, that's sad. You would expect at least a commentary from King about his thoughts on it, or at least a short interview with him. And from what I understand, a short behind the film documentary of this film would be interesting. I mean, I'd love to hear Gary Busey's thoughts on it. Love to hear Megan Follows' thoughts on it. I'd love to hear the director's thoughts on it. And of course, like I said, King. And there's just so much. Even if it was just like an old documentary from back in the day, I'd prefer that to nothing. But anyway, 5 minutes in, I haven't talked about the plot. The plot is that the movie, by the way, is narrated by one of the main characters, Jane Coleslaw. Yes, their last name is Coleslaw. Yeah, that's kind of weird. And of course, like most of King's stories, it takes place in Maine, in the town, of Tarker's Mill. Now, our main characters are a family. First, we got Jane, the older sister, and basically most of her narration in the movie centers on her relationship with her younger paraplegic brother Marty, played by Haim. And they have a very strained relationship. As you can tell, it seems that Marty always gets what Marty wants, and I could see probably why the parents might be doing that, even if subconsciously, because, you know, a kid's paralyzed from the waist down, so they're going to side with him even if they're not realizing they are. And with that, I can actually be sympathetic to Jane. And you could even see that Marty at times is sympathetic with it, which that's one of the things about that I like. Now, their relationship starts to get better after a series of brutal murders happens in their town. First, a railroad worker is killed. At first, the coroner and stuff believes that he just passed out on the railroad tracks and he's run over by a train, because that's what it kind of looks like could have happened. Next, a local woman is killed after she was about to commit suicide. And then, of course, at this point, the town people are starting to get worried. It's like, okay, we just had one guy die. Now, a month later, another person's dead. I don't think this is a coincidence. Then another victim happens. And this one is kind of a little bit more close to home, because the daughter of this guy is Marty's girlfriend. And he's killed out near his shed. Of course, after the murder, that guy's family leaves. And next, the teenager dies, who happens to be Marty's best friend. And of course, from that point, you know, when a kid dies, you know, in a town like this, they're gonna form a mob, which you're gonna know the law is gonna get into that. Which I actually do love this scene; it's very powerful. This whole thing about what the dad says about justice. I'm trying to remember what the wording, not the wording of the whole speech. What I think it was personal justice. I don't know what he said about personal justice. That it was a nice speech, and you can tell that it's a very subtle performance. It's not like he's going over the top. It's very subtle. This is where he shows that subtlety can actually be sometimes be better than over the topness, because you can tell he's hiding in his pain. He's not like overly like personal justice. Like that would have been nice, but the scene is stronger when you could tell he's actually trying to hold it. He's fighting to hold the emotions from coming in. That's what I like about it. But now, eventually, we do find out who the werewolf is, which I'm not going to spoil it, but in the movie, it's kind of easy to tell who it is, especially after one scene where they blatantly give away the identity of the werewolf. And from what I understand, he is more of a tragic character in the novel, because for one reason, he doesn't remember what he does when he transforms. He's like, it's kind of like, you know, in the Wolfman, he doesn't remember what he does, he just knows that he's transforming, and he actually does try to take measures to prevent him from killing other people. But if one thing does, the people he killed, he tries to make sure it's deaths that could help, like the second murder he does of the suicide person. In both the novel and the movie, it is a person that's about to commit suicide, but for different reasons. But he does it to save her soul, basically, which from that you can see it's kind of a little bit of compassion in a weird, twisted kind of way. It is compassionate, but still wrong. Anyway, now eventually Marty comes in contact with the werewolf and injures it, and of course from there you can figure out that they're going to find out who the werewolf is, and from there it comes to a climax where they're going to have to face him with a silver bullet, hence the title. It's also called that because of a gift that he gets from his Uncle Red, Busey's character, which is basically like a motorized scooter vehicle nicknamed the Silver Bullet. Now, the direction, I have to say this film was well shot. You can tell the 7 million actually is up there on the screen. It's not like a lot of the films today where you're like, this movie cost 150 million. I don't see it. This movie cost 240 million. I don't see it. It's not like that. It's like, this movie cost 7 million. I can more or less see it. And the one thing I will say about the werewolf is that they go with the less is more approach most of the time. Most of the time you either see like a hand, or just maybe the upper part of the body, the feet or something. You don't really see the whole werewolf in the shot, which the Jaws approach, it works. And from my research, I could see probably why they went that way, because apparently Dino De Laurentiis did not like the werewolf suit design, and he wanted to get another one. But I have to say, I actually like the werewolf design. It's sleek, it's not bulky, and it kind of works. And because of that, they actually had to shoot all the non-werewolf scenes first, which I wouldn't have guessed that from watching the movie that they were shot first, but kind of makes sense. Then it was only when they had no choice that De Laurentiis allowed them to do it. But I actually want to know what what De Laurentiis' thoughts were on the film afterwards. I mean, that's why it probably would have been interesting if they would have done a special edition years ago. Because if I remember correctly, I think De Laurentiis just passed away not that long ago. I'm checking his page. Yeah, I think he passed away He passed away 2 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. See, that's why I hope if they ever do a special edition DVD that they actually have some stuff from back in the day where they can get thoughts of De Laurentiis and Haim. Yeah. But werewolf suit, like I said, don't mind it. It's interesting. The acting, Gary Busey, he's probably my favorite performance in the movie. Him as Uncle Red, the womanizing uncle that doesn't really seem to know what he wants to do in life, but loves his family. Perfect casting. And this is actually the first performance I saw of Gary Busey, and I didn't really know it was Gary Busey until more recently when I did study. I'm like, that was Gary Busey? Cool! And, you know, like I said, I didn't really watch the movie that often. Mostly when it came out on TV, and that's usually was around Halloween, so you forgive me for that. And one thing I actually didn't know, and I actually like this, is that a lot of his dialogue was ad-libbed, and the way he ad-libbed it, you can't really tell it's ad-libbed. It does feel like it was actually written by a script, or maybe not the exact wording, but it feels that it's just great. And just he acts like an adult would react if two a teenager and a preteen basically came and told him, hey, you know that there's a werewolf around, a werewolf. Yeah, it's just and then of course eventually he does come to believe it, but it takes prodding and poking for him too. But I do like it. He's kind of skeptical. Everett McGill as the Reverend Lester Lowe, he does a very good job, and not to spoil much about the plot, but let's just say he fits the role very well, and at times you feel sympathetic, but at other times you want to smack him. That's all I'm going to say. Haim as Marty, perfect casting. He really does fit the role. He makes you feel for the character. He makes you actually want to see him get the werewolf. And you actually do feel for that he does not like the fact that his parents are constantly babying him. Maybe he does like the fact that he does get what he wants, but he doesn't like the fact that it's at the expense of his sister. It's very subtle, especially more in how his face emotes. And that's what I like. Sometimes just a facial expression is all you need in acting. If you could, well, at least this works more probably for screen acting than it would for stage acting. Unless you're in the front row, it's going to be hard to tell what's on the person's face. You'd have to emote with your whole body. But sometimes, facial expressions, all you need. Like in Batman '89, facial expression, all you need. Megan Follows as Jane, also good casting. Like I said, you really do get the strained relationship with Marty, and as she comes to actually, that relationship comes to get better, you actually do care for her more, even more so than what you probably did earlier. Now, all the minor characters in the movie, their actors do pretty good jobs. It's not acting that would stand out. You're like, oh, that's a very good performance. It's basically more or less just a performance where you believe them in the role, but without, saying, oh my god, that's an epic performance, or I don't believe it. So basically, more or less, like I said, serviceable acting, I guess. Yes, serviceable acting. The score, off the top of my head, I can't really remember much about it, but it was an interesting score, I guess I could say. The film was pretty well edited, and it actually does move at a very quick pace, which I guess is why I don't mind the episodic feel of it. And also, I actually do kind of like the episodic feel of it. It feels like an episode series without being an episode series, and like I said, moves at a very reasonable pace. It kind of, I don't know, I think this would be. It kind of does quicken a little bit after the mob part, and they actually do an interesting little scene in there involving mist, which I'm not going to spoil. There are some funny lines in the movie, like, "You gonna make lemonade in your pants?" Oh my god, that's just a funny thing for a wife to say to her husband. And it's late, and I didn't take notes of what the lines were, but there are a lot of interesting lines in the movie. I don't know really, that's about it. I don't have to say about the movie. I mean, it's a fun movie. If you guys can find an AVI of it, I'd say watch it, because if you have the DVD and you haven't watched it, I say watch it. Paramount, get off of your butts and do a special edition DVD, even if it's just like scenes that were taken out of the movie, or maybe an old documentary, or even a commentary. That's better than just a bare bones DVD, because from what I understand, the DVD only has the trailer on it. It could be wrong, but if you guys know if it has more than just a trailer, let me know in the comment section. But as far as I know, that's all that's on it. I would only probably get in my collection like that if it was a collection of other films of Kings that I've been looking for, which I think one of my things in my wish list actually is that. Anyway, my rating for Silver Bullet, I'd say is 4 out of 5.